I've always been the practical one in my family. While my younger sister Lily was busy chasing her dreams of becoming a successful restaurateur, I focused on climbing the corporate ladder step by step. That approach finally paid off when I landed a senior manager position at Crawford and Associates with a salary that made my previous job look like pocket change. The only downside? The commute was killing me. 2 hours each way meant I was spending 4 hours a day just getting to and from work. After 2 weeks of this nightmare, I knew I had to find a place closer to the office. That Saturday, I went to my parents' house for our traditional family dinner. Mom was in the kitchen stirring something that smelled amazing, while Dad sat in his favorite armchair reading the newspaper. It felt like every other Saturday dinner we'd had since I was a kid. "How's the new job going, honey?" Mom asked as she placed a steaming casserole on the table. "Actually, really good," I replied, helping her set the table. "I just got promoted to senior manager with my own team. The only problem is the commute. I'm looking for a new place closer to work." Mom barely nodded at my promotion news. That's when I noticed my parents exchange one of those looks they'd perfected over their 30 years of marriage. Mom wiped her hands on her apron and sat down. "You know, Elise," she said, "we might have a solution for you. Remember Grandma Helen's old guest house? The one attached to our property? It's empty now, and it's only a 15-minute drive from your office." I nearly dropped the fork I was holding. Of course I remembered that guest house. It was a cozy 2-bedroom place with huge windows and a small garden area where Grandma used to grow her beloved roses. "How much would the rent be?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. Mom named a figure that made my eyes widen. It was about 1/3 less than the average market price in that area. "We'd give you a family discount, of course," she added with a smile. "I'll take it," I said immediately, not even trying to negotiate. The location was convenient, and the price was unbeatable. "That's settled then," Dad said, finally looking up from his newspaper. "Now, did you hear about your sister's latest plan? She and Jason have found the perfect location for their organic restaurant. They're really going to make it big in the farm-to-table business." And just like that, the conversation shifted to their favorite topic, Lily's ventures. I sat there pushing food around my plate, nodding at appropriate intervals as my parents gushed about how their daughter was becoming a successful entrepreneur. It was always like this. Lily was the golden child, the risk-taker, the one who dared to dream big. I was just Elise, the reliable one they barely noticed. Moving day was surprisingly quick. The real shock came when I walked into Grandma Helen's guest house with the first box in my hands. The place was, well, let's just say fixer-upper would be a generous description. The walls were covered in dated wallpaper that was peeling at the corners. There were water stains on the ceiling, and the only piece of furniture was this ancient sofa that looked like it had survived both world wars. I called Mom that evening, sitting cross-legged on that old sofa, the only place to sit in the entire guest house. "Hey Mom, would it be okay if I renovated the place? It needs a lot of work." She sounded distracted, probably watching one of her cooking shows. "Oh sure, honey. Just don't make it too bright. You know how I feel about those trendy neon colors everyone's using these days." I had to laugh at that. "Mom, have you ever seen me wear anything brighter than navy blue? Trust me, I'm thinking more along the lines of earth tones and neutrals. I've actually been taking online interior design courses for months." That night, I dove deep into my design plans, pulling out the inspiration boards I'd been creating for years. I had a vision: warm grays, soft beiges, and the occasional deep blue accent. Everything would be understated but elegant, comfortable but put together. Just like me, I guess, though my family never seemed to notice. The next few months became a blur of work and renovation. I'd come home from the office, change into old clothes, and get to work. First came the wallpaper removal, revealing decades-old plaster that needed serious patching. Then there was the painting, which taught me that just one more coat is rarely just one more coat. I meticulously documented everything with photos and kept every receipt in a binder, organizing them by room and project, a habit from my accounting days that would prove invaluable later. Furniture shopping became my weekend mission. I'd spend hours researching, comparing prices, and testing pieces before committing. My savings from years of careful budgeting were finally being put to good use. Piece by piece, I transformed the space, a comfortable gray sectional that was perfect for movie nights, a solid wood dining table that could seat 6, custom built-in bookshelves that maximized storage. The transformation took 5 months of weekends and evenings, along with a significant portion of my savings, but finally, it was done. Looking around at my finished guesthouse, I felt a surge of pride so strong it almost brought tears to my eyes. I had done this, created something beautiful with my own hands and vision. When Mom came to see the finished result, I was nervous. She walked through each room slowly, running her hand along the new quartz countertops, examining the carefully chosen light fixtures, studying the subtle pattern on the wallpaper in the bedroom. "Elise," she said finally, turning to face me, "this is remarkable." I nearly fell over. Mom wasn't exactly free with her compliments, especially when it came to me. But there she was, actually smiling, actually impressed. "You did all this yourself?" she asked, gesturing around the living room. I nodded, trying not to look too pleased with myself. "Well, those online design courses I've been taking helped a lot. And I documented everything, before, during, and after photos, all receipts, even videos of the process." "It's beautiful," she said, and then did something she hadn't done in years. She hugged me. A real hug, not one of those quick, obligatory ones she usually gave me at family gatherings. 2 weeks later, I headed to another family dinner, practically bouncing with excitement. I'd gotten another promotion at work, departmental head with a substantial salary bump. I couldn't wait to share the news. "Mom, Dad," I said during a lull in the conversation, "I have some great news. I got promoted to head of department." Mom barely glanced up from her plate. "That's nice, dear." She turned to Dad, her voice animated. "Have you heard from Lily today? About the restaurant?" That's when the real dinner conversation started. Turned out my sister's organic restaurant was in trouble. A bigger competitor had moved into town, some trendy farm-to-table chain with celebrity chef endorsements and lower prices. Lily's customers were disappearing faster than free samples at a grocery store. "We're going to help them," Dad announced, pushing his plate away. "We've decided to take out a second mortgage on the house." I nearly choked on my water. A second mortgage? Look, maybe this is actually an opportunity. If she can't compete with this bigger restaurant, maybe it's time to try something else. Starting over might be better than throwing good money after bad. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged one of their looks, not the fond ones they usually shared, but the kind that said they were disappointed in me. Again. "You don't understand business, Elise," Dad said finally, his voice tight. "You've always played it safe with your corporate jobs. Your sister is an entrepreneur. She takes risks. Family always helps family," Mom added firmly, her eyes narrowing. "That's what we do." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds. I could have told them I'd discovered the cure for cancer, and they'd still be more concerned about Lily's organic kale supply. The next 6 months were like watching a slow-motion car crash. Mom would call occasionally to update me on the situation, though I never asked. The second mortgage they took out bought Lily some new kitchen equipment and helped her lower her prices, but it wasn't enough. The competitor kept expanding, kept taking customers, kept pushing their celebrity chef endorsements and farm fresh marketing. Then came the call I'd been expecting all along. "Your sister's restaurant went bankrupt," Mom said, her voice tight with emotion. "She and Jason have moved in with us temporarily, just until they get back on their feet." I gripped my phone tighter, thinking about my quiet prediction at that dinner 6 months ago. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, because what else could I say? "I told you so." "They're sleeping in your old room," Mom continued. "Jason's taking it pretty hard. You know how he is about appearances and his designer clothes." Yeah, I knew how my brother-in-law was. Jason had always looked down his nose at my corporate job, preferring to remind everyone at family gatherings that he was married to a visionary restaurateur. I wondered how he was handling living with his in-laws now. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house, telling myself it was just another family dinner. But as soon as I walked through the door, the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lily was sprawled on the living room couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up when I entered, offering only a grunt that might have been hey. Jason was perched on the armchair like he was sitting on a throne, his designer watch glinting under the light. He gave me one of his trademark looks, the kind that suggested I was something he'd found stuck to his Italian leather shoes. "Dinner's ready," Mom called, and we all gathered around the table. I should have known better than to hope for a quiet meal. Lily launched into what felt like a rehearsed speech about her restaurant troubles before I'd even picked up my fork. I had everything under control, she insisted, gesturing dramatically with her knife. The restaurant was growing, we were expanding our menu, then these corporate vultures moved in with their celebrity chef and deep pockets. "They probably spent millions on marketing," Jason added, pushing his food around his plate. "How is a small business supposed to compete with that? The location was wrong anyway, that shopping district has terrible foot traffic." "Exactly." Lily slammed her hand on the table, making the glasses rattle. "They're just bullies with bigger budgets. And don't get me started on those idiots at the bank who wouldn't extend our credit line. Complete morons who wouldn't know a good business opportunity if it bit them in the..." "Maybe," I interrupted, unable to help myself, "this is just how business works. Competition is part of the game. You have to plan for these possibilities when you start a company. I tried to warn you 6 months ago." The silence that followed was absolute. 4 pairs of eyes stared at me like I'd just suggested we should all start eating rocks for breakfast. "Plan," Lily sneered. "Easy for you to say from your cushy corporate job. What do you know about running a real business? You've always played it safe." "I just think," I started, but Dad's warning look made me shut my mouth. I focused on my plate instead, pushing my green beans into neat little rows. "I can't take living here much longer," Jason announced suddenly, his voice dripping with dissatisfaction. "No offense," he added, not sounding sorry at all, "but I need my own space. These accommodations just aren't working for us." Lily immediately perked up like a puppet on strings. "Hey, Mom, what about the guesthouse Elise is living in? That's technically your property, right?" My head snapped up. "I'm living there," I said quickly. "And I've renovated it completely with my own money." "Oh yes," Mom nodded, suddenly animated. "Elise has done a wonderful job with the place. It looks absolutely beautiful now." I saw the look that passed between Lily and Jason, quick, calculating, meaningful. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed the feeling away. I was being paranoid. They wouldn't. Would they? Wednesday evening, I was coming home from work, my mind already on the leftovers waiting in my fridge and the new Netflix series I'd been saving. But when I pulled into the driveway, I stopped dead. There were voices coming from my guest house. Familiar voices. I opened my door to find Mom, Lily, and Jason standing in my living room like they owned the place. Jason was running his hand along the custom shelving I'd installed just last month. "Mom." I tried to keep my voice steady. "What's going on? You could have called to say you were coming over." Mom waved her hand dismissively, not even looking at me. "Don't be ridiculous, Elise. This is my property. I don't need permission to visit." My mouth went dry. Something about her tone sent warning bells ringing through my head. I watched as Jason continued his tour of my home, inspecting everything like he was a real estate agent doing an evaluation. He ran his fingers along the quartz kitchen counter I'd installed, peered into the freshly painted bathroom, and nodded approvingly at the built-in bookshelves I'd added to the living room. Finally, he settled himself on the sofa, the old one I'd kept from before the renovation, and smiled that smug smile of his. "This is perfect. We can move in next week." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Excuse me? I live here. This is my home. I renovated it with my own money and time." "I decide who lives here," Mom cut in, her voice sharp. "This is still my property." "But all the work I did." I gestured around at the custom woodwork, the hardwood floors I'd refinished, the countless hours of labor I'd poured into this place. I transformed this guest house from a dump into something beautiful. "Oh yes," Mom's smile turned calculating. "Actually, since you've improved the place so much, the market value has gone up significantly. If you want to stay, the new rent will be 5 times what you're paying now." The blood drained from my face as everything clicked into place. They'd planned this. Mom knew I couldn't afford quintuple the rent. My promotion was good, but not that good. "You're trying to force me out for Lily and Jason," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Mom shrugged, not even bothering to deny it. "If you can't afford the new rent, you should probably start looking for another place. You have a week to move out." Without waiting for my response, they headed for the door. Jason was already on his phone, presumably making moving plans. Lily hadn't said a word the entire time. She didn't need to. Mom paused in the doorway but didn't turn around. "1 week," she repeated, then pulled the door shut behind them. I stood in the middle of my living room, the living room I had painted, decorated, made into a home, and felt the walls closing in. The proud warmth I'd felt showing Mom my renovation just months ago turned to ashes in my mouth. While my family probably expected me to spend that evening crying into my pillow, I was already on my phone, scrolling through real estate listings. By midnight, I'd found the perfect place, a modern one-bedroom condo just 10 minutes from my office. The rent was higher than what I'd been paying Mom, but with my savings and recent promotion, I could manage it. First thing Thursday morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years. By 9 a.m., I'd toured the new condo. By 10 a.m., I'd signed the lease and paid the deposit. The real estate agent, a sharp-eyed woman named Vivian Torres, raised an eyebrow when I asked if I could move in immediately. "Family situation," I said simply, and something in my expression must have told her all she needed to know. "I can have the keys ready by noon," she replied with an understanding nod. Next stop, a moving company. I found one that specialized in same-day moves and didn't mind paying the rush fee. While waiting for them to arrive, I went through my home, no, Mom's property, with post-it notes, marking everything I'd bought with my own money. My meticulous record-keeping was about to pay off in the most satisfying way. The movers arrived at 1 p.m. I stood in the living room, directing traffic like a conductor, my binder of receipts open on the coffee table. The custom gray sectional. Mine. The handcrafted dining table and chairs? Mine. All the kitchen appliances except the original stove and fridge? Mine. Those built-in bookshelves. I designed and installed them myself. They're coming too. Item by item, my things went into the truck, the professional coffee maker I'd splurged on after my promotion, the designer light fixtures I'd installed throughout, the custom bathroom vanity I'd built from scratch. Even the hardwood floors I'd laid down myself were carefully removed, section by section. Everything I'd purchased to make this place a home, all of it went into boxes and onto the truck. When they finished, the guest house looked almost exactly as it had the day I moved in, empty walls, bare concrete subfloor, and that old sofa sitting alone in the middle of the living room like a captain going down with his ship. I took one last look around, remembering all the weekends I'd spent renovating, all the evening hours I'd invested in making this place beautiful. Then I locked the door, dropped my keys in an envelope, and slipped them under my parents' front door on my way to my new home. I spent that night setting up my new place, arranging furniture until everything felt right. It wasn't until the next morning that all hell broke loose. The calls started at 7 a.m. Mom, Lily, Jason, Mom again, Lily again. I watched my phone buzz across my new kitchen counter, taking a slow sip of coffee from my relocated coffee maker. After the 6th call, I finally picked up. "How dare you?" Mom's voice exploded through the speaker. "The guest house is completely empty. Lily and Jason have nowhere to sleep except that old sofa. You even took the floors. You had no right to take everything." I took another sip of coffee, feeling surprisingly calm. Actually, I had every right. I bought everything with my own money, including those floors. I have all the receipts meticulously organized if you'd like to see them. I left what was there originally, you know, that sofa you were so happy to let me use. There was a moment of silence, then Mom called me something that would have made Grandma Helen wash her mouth out with soap. The call ended with a click. My phone started buzzing again within 30 minutes of Mom's call, this time with message notifications. Lily and Jason had apparently tag-teamed to blow up my Messenger app. "You vindictive witch." That was from Jason. "How dare you take everything? You're just jealous because Lily's a real entrepreneur and you're just another corporate robot pushing papers." Lily's messages weren't any better. You selfish piece of work. You've always been jealous of my vision and creativity. Now you're trying to punish us just because we're going through a rough patch. Real classy, sis. Real classy. The messages kept coming, each one more vitriolic than the last. According to my dear sister and her husband, I was greedy, heartless, vindictive, petty, cruel, selfish, and, my personal favorite, a soulless corporate drone who wouldn't know family loyalty if it bit her in the face. I read each message once, then closed the app without responding. Instead of engaging with their drama, I threw myself into settling into my new place. I arranged my furniture, decorated the walls, and started building a new life. A month passed without any contact from my family. I'd love to say I didn't think about them, but that would be a lie. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering how they were doing, if they'd managed to furnish the empty guest house, if Mom still made her famous lasagna for Sunday dinners. But I pushed those thoughts away each time they surfaced. They'd made their choice when they tried to exploit me. Then, exactly 1 month after the move, my phone lit up with Mom's number. I almost didn't answer, but some combination of curiosity and lingering hope made me pick up. The rent payment didn't come through, she said without preamble, her voice accusatory and sharp. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Of course it didn't. I don't live there anymore, remember? You kicked me out by demanding 5 times the rent. That's not the point, Mom snapped. We're expecting you to continue the payments. My laugh died in my throat. Excuse me? We're having a very difficult time right now, Elise, she said, her voice shifting to that manipulative tone I knew so well. We're still paying off the second mortgage we took out for Lily's restaurant, and she and Jason can't afford to pay rent right now. The family needs your help. Let me get this straight, I said slowly, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. You kicked me out of the guest house I renovated so Lily and Jason could move in, and now you want me to keep paying rent for a place I'm not living in just so they can live there for free? Why are you so selfish? Family helps family, Mom said, as if that explained everything. You know we're struggling with the mortgage payments, and Lily and Jason are still trying to get back on their feet. You've always been so self-centered. That phrase again. How many times had I heard it over the years? Always when they needed something from me, never when I needed support myself. Always a one-way street. Something inside me finally snapped. Really? Is that what family does? Does family kick one child out of her home to make room for another? Does family take someone's years of hard work and investment away and then have the audacity to demand they keep paying for it? Does family call someone selfish for not wanting to be used as an ATM? You're being dramatic. I'm just asking you to help your sister in her time of need. No, Mom. I'm being realistic for the first time in my life. I'm seeing things exactly as they are. This attitude of yours, the family helps family, right? Well, guess what? I'm family too. Or at least I was supposed to be. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Mom spoke again, her voice was cold as ice. I'm very disappointed in you, Elise. You've always been so difficult. I actually laughed at that. Funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you. I ended the call and immediately blocked her number. Then, in quick succession, I blocked Dad's number, Lily's, and Jason's. I opened every messaging app on my phone and blocked them there too. For good measure, I went through all my social media accounts and blocked them as well. It felt like cutting off a limb, but somehow, I was finally able to breathe. Weeks passed, then months. Through the family grapevine, mainly my cousin Maya, who'd always been decent to me, I heard bits and pieces about what was happening. Lily had apparently come up with another brilliant business idea, something about artisanal pet food delivery or maybe it was organic food subscription boxes. Maya wasn't quite sure. My parents were making the rounds, asking various relatives for startup money. Most of them had enough sense to refuse. Only Uncle Derek, notorious for charging interest rates that would make a loan shark blush, offered to help. Even my parents weren't desperate enough to take him up on that offer. The last thing I heard was that they were considering taking out another loan to fund Lily's latest venture. Maya told me this over coffee one Saturday, watching me carefully for my reaction. What do you think about that? She asked. I stirred my latte, considering the question. 6 months ago, I would have been worried sick. 3 months ago, I would have been angry. Now, not my circus, not my monkeys, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. Maya grinned. You seem different, she said. Happier. I thought about my new condo, decorated exactly how I wanted it. About my recent promotion at work, the one I'd celebrated with my team instead of my family. About the interior design courses I was now taking seriously, even interviewing for an assistant position at a prestigious design firm. I replied. I really am. Later that evening, I sat on my sofa, in my condo, with a glass of wine and my design portfolio open on the coffee table. I'd just received an email from Gabriel Nelson, the owner of the city's most prestigious interior design firm. He'd seen photos of my guesthouse renovation, the ones I'd meticulously documented, and wanted to meet. Mom's words echoed in my head one last time, family helps family. They were right about one thing. Family should help family. But somewhere along the way, they'd forgotten that help should go both ways, that love should be unconditional, that family means supporting each other's growth, not enabling each other's failures. I took another sip of wine and smiled at my portfolio. I had better things to do than try to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. Much better things indeed.